I'm now on drink number 3, so I'm feeling sufficiently good enough to start this podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the eMLB Broadcast Buddies, Podcast Pals, whatever you want to call it, the insiders that are all together now as one, post-trade deadline, and all 5 of the boys are back in town, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Andrew, we've got Tim, we've got JR, we've got Brenden. Welcome in, everyone. I am Aiden, as it says right there on the screen. Gentlemen, trade deadline is here and go. We're now into the dog days of August, heading towards a pennant race special. And was it a busy deadline? Maybe, according to some people in the Discord, no big marquee moves. Others may have begged to differ, but we'll talk about most of them here today. Gentlemen, how are we feeling post-trade deadline?
Well, to take a quote from Tony the Tiger, I feel great.
I'm feeling pretty good too. Not only with the trades that took place in St. Louis, but our record since the trade deadline is looking pretty good so far.
So I believe all 5 of us made some sort of significant move here at the deadline. There will be one we are going to touch base on that did not happen later in the podcast, so stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and jump right into it, and let's start with the move that had everybody talking in the Discord, the soccer-style transfer of $22 million cash heading to the Chicago Cubs for right fielder Hansa Herdelek over there and now in Texas. Gentlemen, there was a lot of discussion in the Discord about this, about whether or not this move should have been allowed. I'll start and give my thoughts, and then we'll bring in you guys. I think why not? It is the same as today's day in real baseball when you trade a player for cash considerations. I don't see the big deal with this. It maybe sets a precedence. Okay, whatever. But we see soccer does it. We see them also exchange players, maybe not as frequently. But why is it such a big deal to some people? And why did we see some potential rumors about a new rule being created due to this?
Well, I just want to point out your point about how baseball has trades for cash considerations. That is normally for players that are afterthoughts on other teams' rosters, that they're just like, I don't really want this player anymore. Would you take him off our hands for like a few $100,000 or like $1 million or something like that? You're not talking $22 million for one of the top prospects in someone's system. So.
Yeah, and again, I just from a mechanics standpoint, I struggle with the idea that okay, this deal is approved, but we're going to immediately create a rule that makes it something that we're not going to allow in the future.
If we aren't going to allow it in the future, why are we allowing it now? Why not veto it and say rule coming later?
For the same reasons that we have the Cody Koshin rule and the Seiya Suzuki rule.
But doesn't that kind of approach just encourage that sort of rule bending?
Yes.
I feel like at a certain point in time, you can over-legislate an online league and take out a lot of the creativity and the bullshit that gives us a lot to talk about. I don't have a problem with this deal. I like it. I like it. It's stupid. It's adequately stupid, and I love it.
For me, it's not the fact that it happened. It's the fact that it's for this player. I feel like $22 million for a prospect that's not even in the top 100. Now, granted, it's OOTP's top 100, and we kind of crap on that all the time, but still, this is not a player that I would spend $22 million on. I think of a cash for prospect deal in terms of, would I give this player that signing bonus if I drafted them? And to sign this player to a draft pick for $22 million.
But that's the fundamental problem.
Well, you're not
Here's the thing. You're not understanding
Jamie, though. He doesn't understand U.S. dollars.
This is very true. Hold on. We are eliminating. Hold on. We are taking out of the point here that Jamie is a soccer fan first. This is a classic soccer transfer right here. This is
we're playing baseball here. This ain't soccer.
I'm not denying.
Hold on. But why not bring some of the soccer tendencies over to baseball? We see them trying to bring the Moneyball aspect over to soccer. Why not bring some transfers like this over to the baseball world? JR, you keep shaking your head. It's my money. Why can't I do what I choose to do with it? If I want to send $30 million for a player, why can't I do that?
Can I just point out that I love the fact that you guys are calling this a transfer and not a trade, because I have been harping on this. I'm known for harping on this. That's not a trade. You're buying a player. Thank you for calling it a transfer and not a trade.
It's a transfer.
Well, I mean, that's semantics. Transfer and trade pretty much mean the same thing, right?
It does. I trade you my money for your player.
I know. I do it just for the fun of it now. I'm not even serious about it.
I just hate anything that happens that is like so far away from reality. Like this would be so laughed at in real baseball, like that, to even think that you could even submit it to get any kind of approval. That those are the things that I don't like.
Do you think in real life Rob Manfred would accept this?
God, no.
I don't think that. I think that if two teams did this, it would happen, and we as fans would complain about it, and we'd probably move on and forget about it within a couple weeks.
It would never even get submitted. It would be so laughably silly to even think of a deal like this that nobody would even.
How much money, JR? Let's ask you this question. Hold on, JR. Since you are such a big anti on this, which I'm not saying you're right or wrong. How much money would you get for this player?
Would I trade for him?
Yeah, let's say you're getting this player. How much money are you willing to give for him?
Put yourself in Jamie's shoes.
Absolutely tops, I would pay like $5 million, and I don't even know that I would do that.
That's the number I had in my head.
Okay, I hear you guys.
So,
all right, let's move on. Let's go ahead and move forward to now some actual trades that happened here at the deadline. You know, some fun ones. We saw a lot of different things happen across.
Can I make one more point real quick before we move on? I think this deal and the aftermath of it has once again brought up the question of, what do we want this league to be? Do we want it to be a league that follows closely to real life, or do we want it to be a league where GMs have that creative license? And it's kind of a mixture of both, and I don't think we're landing on either side right now. And it's where do we draw the line?
Well, but in a league where we have CCPs, where we can roid those guys up, for lack of a better term, it's kind of hard to challenge something on the reality of it.
And I think there's another aspect to this trade that we might not be thinking of, and that is the fact that there is a cash maximum that you can carry over year. Jamie might be thinking, I'm going to be a bunch of money over that max cash that I'm going to lose anyway, so I might as well send this money over and get a player back instead of just losing the money right out.
Can we also talk about the reason the Cubs are getting the money?
We're going to be here a long time.
But my last thought on this, the reason the Cubs are getting the money is because they are signing players that they value more than this guy here.
Yeah,
that were drafted.
I'm not knocking the Cubs at all. It's a great move for the Cubs.
I agree. All right, let's move on. Let's move on so we don't keep getting sidetracked on this topic here. All right, next move we're going to talk about involves your Arizona Diamondbacks, who are already retooling for 2030 here as a part of the eMLB program. We saw Rafael Martinez, the closer of the Arizona Diamondbacks, head to Toronto for Diego Cartaya, Mark Chamberlain, and Sean Grundy. Tim, talk us through how the negotiations went, because I know you said in the Discord as well as in some messages that you had multiple offers on the table for Martinez, and then talk about how this deal came through for fruition in with Harris, and talk to us a little bit about the return and how you feel like it worked out for you.
Yeah, so Martinez was the guy that I really got the most interest in. I had multiple teams reach out about him. Some of the offers really never made it too far. The main thing I really was looking for out of this was a major league ready catcher that I could afford. That's why Rutschman is not here. And so a lot of the teams that I was talking with had neither somebody ready that they were willing to part with or anybody close to ready. Cartaya basically kind of fell in my lap as a really good defensive first. I liked his metrics as far as defensively. and handling pitchers and things like that. I'm giving him a lot of credit for Elric's no-hitter because Elric has struggled with, he's either getting lit up in the second inning or he pitches a really good game. And for him, it just feels like the team is responding to Cartaya's being here, even though it's only been a week. Grundy and Chamberlain were kind of throw-ins. I felt like Chamberlain was not going to go anywhere. While you're on, okay, well, you can go back.
I'm trying to follow what you're saying. Sorry.
Okay. My scout really liked him a lot. And I felt like I'm also looking for center field help and any kind of outfield offense that I can get. So he was another candidate. And the fact that I was able to get all three, I mean, it was Martinez was going to be in an ARB year, and as my closer, I just wasn't going to be able to afford him.
And also looking at it too, both Chamberlain and Grundy, based on what we've already seen and heard from 25, their profiles look to project well into 25, just based on some early preliminary tests from what I've seen already.
Yeah. That's part of it too, and I think I just think that Harris has a really deep pool of minor league talent, and it's kind of what I'm aspiring to in Arizona, building kind of that Tampa Bay in real life like thing where I can just churn prospects and bring people in for a year or two, see how far we can get, rinse, repeat.
So talk to us a little bit before we open it up to the panel. How many other teams were involved, and was there anyone else even close, or was it just sort of Harris was the front runner from the beginning?
Harris was one of the last ones to come in, and it kind of he was definitely as soon as he had the offer for who he was going to send, he became the leader in the clubhouse, and it wasn't close. So after that, it was just kind of circling back with some of the other teams and like, well, look, if you can add another person or maybe this guy or that guy, we can continue to talk. But we wrapped up fairly quickly.
All right, I'm going to open it up to the floor here. Guys on the floor, what is your take on this deal and how Tim did?
I think it's solid on both sides.
I'm just trying to give some commentary here, guys.
I can leave and y'all can rip it out.
What else could be really said here?
I mean, you make a good point. I think Tim got what he could get for the bullpen piece, but I think overall, looking at what his team needs, it'll be interesting to see how long you can keep on to Cartaya and how long and if he can improve the offensive bat to get above the Mendoza line.
I don't think you brought him in for that, though. You brought him in for the defense.
But you'd like to see him above the Mendoza line.
You would. It's not the end of the world if he doesn't, because you're not expecting him to do that.
Right. And I've got a semi-decent offensive catcher. Who would have been the starter if he was any better at handling pitchers. He's just not. And I'm curious to see what 25 is going to look like as it's broken out, as it breaks out catcher ability a little more.
He's not good at handling balls.
He's on his fifth girlfriend. I don't know.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our first trade made by Andrew here. We're going to start with
the next four are the four moves I made. So
we're going to go ahead and start with Andrew O'Quinn heading from Philly, From Philly, right? Yep.
Yeah.
From Philly to St. Louis for a package of Luis Morales, Austin Bentley Jr., and Andy Gilbert. Andrew, we talked about it, or you've talked about it some, especially in some conversations that we had specifically.
Mhm.
You were looking to sort of mix up your outfield and to upgrade your outfield. And I think this was your first step to do that. And it gives you a pretty strong outfield. Talk us through a little bit about how this deal came to fruition. And I know you got a pretty cool story about Andrew O'Quinn and why you wanted to bring him in. And then also talk to us a little bit about Hebrew has sort of been in and out recently. But how you were still able to get this deal done, even with him sort of being in and out.
So I've actually been trying to get O'Quinn for a couple of seasons now, for two reasons. Number one is because O'Quinn is one of the elite defensive center fielders in the game. And number two, because his creator as a CCP, Shamrocks, is actually the reason I found the eMLB community. I followed Shamrocks when he used to stream on Twitch, where he did a full 161 game franchise of his favorite team, the Atlanta Braves. And after one of those streams, he raided Commish when Commish was still doing eMLB on the show streams. And so because of Shamrocks, I was able to find Commish. Shamrocks was actually the first Atlanta Braves GM in the 2.0 universe. For those of you that are newer and don't know who all was around at the beginning of 2.0.
Taken over and run into the ground by me.
Yeah, Aiden was the one that took over for Shamrocks after he stepped down. So I've known Shamrocks for a while. I've really wanted to get him on the team, not only because I know him, but because his player is such a defensive stud. The original goal was to, in terms of the negotiations this season, to bring O'Quinn in, put him in center and slide Bellows over the left field and just improve the defense overall. Because I felt like my left field in Jack Elliott was good, but a possibility to improve there. Where the trade was breaking down was that, and these are rumors, these are not confirmed, but this is something I heard Commish say on stream, was that extension negotiations between O'Quinn and Hebrew were not going very well because of the fact that O'Quinn had lost playing time to Max Ortiz coming into the Phillies this year. So I guess that because I've been talking with Hebrew for, like I said, a couple of seasons about moving O'Quinn, I guess that brought Hebrew back to the trading table, and we were able to get this deal done. The piece that it was hard for me to let go of, actually, Morales was a throw-in, but Bentley being another CCP of Hummuscott, the leader of the PBE, and then Andy Gilbert was slated to be my super utility player. He can play infield and outfield position, including center field at an elite level. So it's understandable why Hebrew wanted him to replace O'Quinn. But in order to bring over O'Quinn, I felt like it was the right move to make.
Now, have you had any contacts with Shamrocks about either, we got to talk about it when we talk about CCPs, either boosting, signing extension, anything like that? Like, have you, because I know sort of he's not very active in the Discord, but have you heard anything from him as far as, his excitement to be a member of this Cardinals organization?
He is not very active in the eMLB Discord, but he is active on Discord in general. According to Hebrew, before we made the trade, he actually put in the boost that he did have saved up before the trade took place. So I don't think he has any right now. And I have talked with him extensively since the trade. He's excited to be a member of the Cardinals. And in the first sim, he hit a home run in his third game as a Cardinal. And when I messaged our Cardinal CCP chat about that, he's like, heck yeah, letting Philly know what they're missing out on. So he's very excited to be a member of the Cardinals, getting the full-time starting center fielder role in St. Louis. No extension talks have started yet because we're focusing on the playoff push this season right now. And he's in arbitration anyway, so long-term extensions don't have to take place right now.
Gotcha. I'll open it up to the floor. Anyone have any thoughts on this deal? Sort of a little CCP. We saw a decent amount of CCP turnover this trade deadline.
Yeah, I like this deal a lot for Andrew. Clearly, the Phillies didn't have a pressing need for him anymore, with Ortiz arguably being a better player. It's nice to read.
Oh, did we lose him?
Bueller.
It's the cat.
Too many frames. He's back.
There we go.
He's back. You're back.
I don't even remember. I don't even know what all I caught before I cut out.
It's all good.
Good deal. Good. Not unfair. Balance both sides.
And actually, the funny thing is that I actually tried to trade for Max Ortiz as well, but Hebrew beat me out for it with a better offer. But then I ended up with O'Quinn in the end, and I'd much rather have O'Quinn on my team than Ortiz.
Yeah, I think the wild card for Hebrew obviously is Bentley. If Bentley gets some boost there, I think it ends up being a really good trade for him and and Anju. But as it is now, it's pretty basic move all around. Him trading from depth
and Bentley is that extreme ground ball type that Hebrew loves, so that helped.
Yeah.
That was why he was the first player. I was like, hey, you've got a CCP I want. I've got a CCP that you probably want in an extreme ground ball starting pitcher. Let's see if we can make something happen. All right. We want to move to the next one?
You want to move to the next one? We can move to the next one.
Yeah. We don't want
this one has two, or no, sorry. I got one ahead of you. So this one is another big deal where Hamilton Porter, a CCP, is going to head to Toronto to replace Cartaya, I guess, technically.
Rutschman, actually.
Rutschman, technically,
Rutschman.
yeah. For Dalen Lyle, Gus Varland, Juan Morales, and Mitch Bourgeois. You want to talk about it, Andrew?
Sure. So, following the stigma that's going around with me that I will extend players and then put them on the trade block, I needed to move some budget, and I was trying to evaluate who it was. I had posted Wynn and Weathers on the block for the entire season, essentially. Wasn't getting a lot of movement there. I reevaluated where my team was at, and in bringing when I did the extension with Porter, I didn't have Matthew Bellows on the team, Minerva's CCP. So I was thinking Porter, I'm locking him in as my long-term catcher. But after I added Bellows and in conversations with Minerva about what he created Bellows to be, he prefers that Bellows be a full-time catcher. Well, I'm like, well, I've got Porter, so I'm going to put you in center field where your second best position is, and I need a defensive center fielder. But since he is a good catcher, I was like, okay, I have the opportunity to trade Porter and see what I can get back for him. I knew Harris liked Porter. And so we actually went back and forth on this one a lot as well. Entertained the possibility of, instead of multiple prospects, I flip Rutschman to someone else to get those prospects, which is where the rumors about the 3-team trade involving Rutschman took place, which ended up happening somewhere else. But we ended up finding a deal that we both liked. I added another stud defensive outfielder in Lyle, where now I put him into left field. That also addressed my left field situation. Bellows is now the full-time catcher, and I added a top 100 pitching prospect in Gus Varland to improve my depth there, as well as an intriguing two-way prospect. I want to see how he develops each way. He's kind of that wild card. Like, I don't know how he's going to develop. And then kind of a throw-in flyer with Bourgeois or Burgess or whatever. But I think moving Porter, opening up some of that long-term commitment money that I had on him while adding a stud defensive outfielder and a top pitching prospect, still having really good catching behind the plate in Bellows, was a win all around for me.
So let's talk a little bit, because rumors are coming out of St. Louis. I know you're saying here that Bellows is your full-time catcher, but there is some rumors coming around as well that Andrew Pace could see some time behind the dish. Is there any truth to that rumor? We know he's been training as a left-handed catcher. Is there any truth to this rumor? This is what the people would like to know.
People would like to know. So Alexander is considered the third-string catcher to come in situations like, for example, we've had a couple times where Bellows started as a DH because we want his bat in the lineup, but he needs to take a break from catching behind the plate. Jerome Powell will get the start behind the plate. And if something happens to Powell, Alexander will come in at that time, so we don't have to lose the DH.
How come we are not more confident in Alexander? Because we would like to see a major league left-handed catcher full-time. Why are we not more confident in this?
I mean, he's an all-star right fielder, so, I mean, it's not like he's doing bad anywhere else.
That's totally fair. JR, do you have any thoughts on this deal? I feel like you would have some thoughts on this one.
This trade really surprised me at first when I saw it. I was really surprised to see Andrew actually move Porter, not remembering that Bellows has some, the ability to play catcher and everything. I think getting Varland in there, I really like him a lot. Lyle, I like Lyle. I actually had talked with Harris, not this trade deadline, but a little bit in the offseason at one point about Lyle, because I kind of like him as well. My only concern with him is just his injury history. He's been hurt an awful lot. So it's one of those where if you have a lot of different outfielders that you could potentially fill in for him, it's fine. I mean, if he can stay healthy, he's a really good player, and you're getting a starter with him and a potentially really good pitcher in Varlin, and the other guys are just kind of, wild cards. If you get anything from them, great. If not, they were just small pieces in the deal. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see if Lyle can stay healthy and what he's able to contribute there.
Tim or Brenden, any thoughts?
Maybe not so much a thought on this because it would just be repeating, but I mentioned in the Discord that I'm amazed at like these multiple trades that GMs like. If any one of these trades falls through or doesn't happen, you would have been left, I feel, with some more challenges, at least a few more holes otherwise. And just, I'd be curious to know, like, kind of the order that things went in and how much did other deals impact each other.
Before we get to that, do we want to talk about the other two? You want to do the other two deals?
And before we get to that, I want to say to all other eMLB GMs, if you're having trouble negotiating an extension with your player, just trade him to the Cardinals, let him sign him to that extension, and then you can trade for him back.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay, wait a minute.
Taking notes.
Write it down.
I mean, Brenden, kind of segue. That's kind of how your deal and my deal kind of worked out.
Yeah. You all want to talk about it? Please go ahead.
So in this deal, I sent the Orioles Ryan Weathers and Juan Corcoran, and I got back Andy Mueller. I traded for Weathers from Tampa Bay, and knowing at the time that Brenden really liked Weathers, we kind of competed. What's that?
Yeah, you and I were in a duel to find out who could convince Aiden to trade him to us.
We were both aware of the other team's interest in Weathers.
Yes.
Also, with full transparency on that deal, because I don't know if it's ever been talked about. That was like a 3-day process where I had a deal I think agreed to with one of you guys, and I was like, wait, I was unable to.
You agreed with Brenden and you backed out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Brenden did not like that.
No, but I'm here for full transparency of this league.
But also full transparency, I did not make the deal for Weathers right after that. It was
3 months later?
Something like that. It was months later. So it was not that I took advantage of Aiden backing out of the other deal. It's like a relationship. I waited the appropriate amount of time before I went back to Aiden and wanted to date him. And so I followed the bro code.
How you feeling?
I can speak onto how this deal specifically came up. When Harris posted about Rutschman being available in a 3-way trade, I really wanted Rutschman. And so I messaged him. He said, I'm getting another catcher. And I went, well, I know Andrew wants to move Porter, so I figured it was it. I said, yes. Go talk to Andrew and see if you can work something out. And we weren't able to come to a deal where either one of us was really happy sending anything for Rutschman. But I did tell him I wanted Weathers, and he told me he wanted more. And when the Rutschman part left the deal, we kind of looked at it and said, well, we've got most of a deal here. What else could we do to just, to handshake on it and go home? Juan Corcoran was a Orioles prospect, was actually the centerpiece of the Alex Verdugo trade. So he gets to go back to Baltimore and be the utility infielder.
And I was more comfortable moving Corcoran to Baltimore because of the next trade we'll talk about.
Yep.
Do we want to just jump into that? I guess we're
go for it.
Might as well.
You want to you describe it, Andrew. You
this
kick us
one was
off.
crazy. So the original talk here was actually Aiden wanted a pitcher. I did not come to Aiden asking for Wander at this time. I've asked for Wander in the past.
He's been asking for Wander for 3 seasons.
Yeah, pretty much. He's one of the most cost controlled players in the league for his production. I was like, I'm not the only team that wanted him for sure.
There was 8 teams that reached out at the deadline about Franco, for full transparency.
There's a lot of desire for Wander. Sometimes you just have to wait a while to get him.
Wait until you're a certain age or something like that.
Ooh.
Anyway, so the original,
he just thought there was a greater opportunity to go back to the minor leagues with St. Louis than there was with Tampa.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, I originally offered Weathers to Aiden. I was like, it'd be funny if I send Weathers back to Tampa Bay, but he was like, no, I'm actually trying to shed salary. I'm more interested in Shaw. And so I was like, well, if you're interested in shedding salary, is Wander a player on the table? And he was like, I'm open to it. So from there, we added in a lot more pieces. Arrington and Henry were the 2 pieces that were hard for me to give up from a prospect standpoint. I had originally had Arrington slated to be the successor to Tony Courtney whenever Courtney either priced himself out of St. Louis or something like that. And Henry has been pitching very well in the minors. Not necessarily rated high, but has one of those like really good stat lines. But I remembered in the middle of our trade negotiations, as Aiden was asking for Arrington, that I was like, oh, I just drafted Shane Larkin. I'm good at shortstop. So I was more willing to allow Arrington into the deal. Also, with putting in Pasquantino, I already have first base solidified at the majors. He is one of those ones knocking on the door. The majors should have a shot here soon. I didn't really have room for him, and so he was included in the deal.
In full transparency, too, there was a reason why I traded for Pasquantino, which is shown at the last deal made before the deadline, which we'll talk about later, that there is a spot that opened up at the major league level that Pasquantino can fill.
Yeah. And throwing in on my side, I added in Allard to help him more with his salary dump because Allard is making $8 million this year. So he was a throw in to make it more attractive to Aiden, and then to kind of replace some of the shortstop depth that I'm losing, I asked for Tim Kohler, who kind of fills the role that Corcoran is leaving as the utility backup infielder. But actually, I've still got Kohler in the minors because Kyron Paris has actually been playing pretty well at the majors. So I'm still sticking with Paris for now. But adding in Wander, because Corcoran had been my starting second baseman because of his defensive ability. But now I've got Wander there, who is both a good defender and a good hitter. So my need for Corcoran went out the window. So then I was able to add him into the deal with Brenden for Muller.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. In my opinion, it was one of these, I felt like it was the right move for me to make in the time that I needed to make it. I am going through a rebuild, a competitive retooling, some might say, and I needed to shed salary. I've got Pearson that I have to lock up to a long-term contract, and so between between him and LeBron Smith as well, that's my cornerstone right there in Tampa. I needed to get younger, and I needed some money shaved. Allard did that, and so did Franco.
For context, the other people here are putting messages in the recording chat that are distracting Aiden.
We're very professional.
This is professional.
So sometimes in real life kind of bleeds into eMLB a little bit, if you can imagine. And
if it bleeds, it leads.
12. So this sounds like a trade that started out like one guy for another guy, and then pieces just kept getting added. And the next thing you know, it's like one of those movies where these 2 armored carriers pull up on either side of the barbed wire, and there's a prisoner exchange.
It was who's gonna bring out the Brinks truck.
Yeah, kind of a gangbang deal.
Exactly.
Sure.
You hit the.
All right, so Tim, were you still interested in the order in which I made these deals?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when was the closest it came to just falling all apart?
So the first deal that I accepted was the O'Quinn deal. That one was locked up. And so that solved the main issue I was trying to solve in my trade deadline, which was adding another outfield piece to improve my left field. That was the biggest thing I was trying to address at the deadline. Then the Porter deal took place, where I was able to add in Lyle to also address that left field, but also move Bellis behind the plate. Then I agreed to the trade with Aiden, but he kept delaying submitting it in game because I want to do another. I'm still waiting on another piece. Which we'll talk about in a minute. And so that one's where I was afraid he was going to get cold feet and back out because I know he'd done it before. You have.
I have. No, I wasn't going to say that I did.
That was not a
But while in the middle of trying to get him to submit that, I did negotiate the deal with Brenden because I knew I was getting Kohler back. So I knew I had was able to trade off Cork and shed some more salary. So yeah, it kind of fell into place where I got the left field I needed. I moved the catcher and I had the pieces I needed to fill in every position switch in that. Then I was able to move Weathers and I was able to add a player that I wasn't even expecting to add in Wander to just improve my lineup even more.
And then this is just me and kind of my approach to baseball. I'm stressed out just hearing all this.
There's a reason why I post trade blocks so frequently. It's because I love talking trades. Even if I don't end up making a deal with someone, I just love the possibility.
How does it feel not to have Ryan Shea anymore to post in a trade block?
That was not the one. It was Weathers that I was posting.
I know, but Shea's
still got
been posting.
He's still got Cole Win. He's still got Cole Win.
No, I didn't really post Shaw. It was Win, and I wanted to move one of Win or Weathers, and now I have Win. I'm keeping him for now, and now I've got Armendariz at the majors. I'm bringing up Allenson this in because he's finally off of suspension after getting in a fight. But Allenson,
Armendariz
and
didn't
Win
do
1, 2,
very well
3.
in his first game.
Spotlight killed him, huh?
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, enough about my trades. We'll move on to the other ones.
So I guess this next one's my big one, huh?
Yeah, and it's taking up 3 rows here. So
let's Coming to Tampa was Pablo Sanchez and Brad Byrne. Going to Kansas City was Fritz Flaherty, Adley Rutschman, and Luis Boncho Bonches. And then going to Toronto was Dominic Aguilera, Arturo Herrera, and $2.5 million in bonus pool money.
And this was
just $2 million.
Just $2 million.
It was the biggest trade of the deadline. Earth-shattering pieces moving on all sides.
Well, Tampa did get $1. I mean, let's face it.
I got you $1.
Tampa gave $1. I had to send $1.
It's huge.
Oh no, wait! I did receive $1.
You received $1.
Yeah,
because you had to give him Dom and Herrera.
So the way this came about, let's be quite honest here. The way this came about is 2 different ways. Number one, I was talking with Minerva about Brad Burt, and I had been talking to him for a while.
Now he's frozen.
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your face is frozen.
We can hear you.
Okay, so I'll keep talking like it's a radio show.
Yeah, your mom told you your face would freeze like that if you kept doing it.
It's fine. So we added in, Byrne was originally, and there were a few prospects that were discussed. And then Minerva talks about wanting a catcher, and Adley Rutschman was out there. So I brought in Harris because I knew Harris had interest in Dominic Aguilera. One thing leads to another. We make some bingo, bongo. Next thing you know, the deal comes together.
You know, it's interesting you say that you're making this like radio because some would say you have a face for radio.
Oh.
Yeah, it's also interesting you're talking about a bingo bango in a 3-way.
Oh.
Well done, Angie. Well done.
You know,
You guys are pulling me down.
You're
into
not
the
on the
game.
JV anymore. That's awesome. That's varsity stuff.
I got another.
Wander Franco out of Tampa Bay before bringing in Pablo Sanchez, who's a literal child. You know, to make sure he was safe.
So bad.
I'm having a stroke.
Tim, we're too far away from you. We can't do anything to help you.
It's okay. It's fine. Where I fall, that's where they should bury me.
Oh man.
I'll be right back, guys. I'm gonna reset my StreamYard real quick.
And we'll be right back to the Podcast Pals Trade Discussion Podcast after a word from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legend.
All right, so now after that brief hiatus, which for you guys was just a moment, after our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends, we are now moving on to some non-us related trades. Andrew, you want to go ahead and kick us off and tell us about some of these? Since you've got
Sure.
the screen in front of you and you can see it.
What, can you not see it?
The letters are so tiny that it's
well,
harder for me to
that's fair.
read.
Yeah, that's just the size of OOTP. Maybe I just need to change the text size. Anyway, this one was between the Houston Astros and the Milwaukee Brewers that sees Frank Glaus heading to Houston for Arturo Bonilla, going back to Milwaukee. A simple 1-for-1 deal, which I'm confused about. I don't know what was necessary about this because it's literally a 1-for-1.
It makes no sense to me. You traded a 25-year-old lefty who has 2 years of service time for a 27-year-old lefty who is a reliever and has 4 years of service time. Now, Glaus can start talent-wise, but from a cost angle, from a talent angle, I just don't see it.
And he is a reliever. He's already made 3 relief appearances in Houston.
Yeah, but he is a talent star. That's why it's a swing guy.
I mean, but Bonilla's kind of the same way. I mean, even look at his stamina. Like he's been starting for Houston, even though he kind of did a couple of bullpen stints in 2008. But you're trading a starting left-handed pitcher, younger, cheaper, for a reliever.
Is it Houston's way of saying I want to win now, but didn't want to use Bonilla in a like? Are you just trying to shed little bits of salary? Like this one just makes my head scratch.
They added more salary.
They got more expensive.
Glaus is more expensive.
Oh yeah, that's right. So like, what is
Maybe it's a cash burn, just like Texas had the beginnings of one.
Yeah, but he's not pitching bad for them in 20 starts of just over 4 ERA. That's not bad. That's solid for where he is in the rotation. He's not supposed to be a top guy, but
and it's also not like they added a Weathers or a Spears or anything like that.
yeah,
Like an upgrade in the rotation. They just sort of,
Well, and it gives him another lefty in the bullpen because the only other one he has is Alvarado.
I mean, if you really want another lefty in the bullpen, he could have bumped Bonilla there.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. Is you could put Bonilla in the bullpen. You've used him there before. It looks like Calder is now in the rotation, which to me this looks like a great downgrade.
Maybe he was just trying to make his team a little worse so he could make it feel like it's a challenge for everyone else.
I don't question Ben a lot, but I question him on this deal.
Nah, I think he was. When you introduce artificial difficulty into a game by handicapping yourself, that's what this is.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, I think the Brewers win the deal, and I don't know why Houston made it.
I question Ben more on the next deal.
Ooh, okay. Segue into the next deal, where he adds Trey Turner from Houston, whose salary is being partially paid by myself. And Seattle receives Christian Moore, Daniel Racine, and Jose Israel Garcia. And for context, Racine is the CCP of Dynamic MLB 42 in the Discord.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the main reason.
Pretty active person.
Yeah, that's the main reason for me. This was a little bit of a head scratcher. I mean, Turner's on an expiring deal, and I mean, he's obviously looking for him to help him this year, which I get. But I mean, that's a pretty valuable asset in Racing to give up for
a rental of Trey Turner.
Yeah, 2 months of Trey Turner. I mean, he's also 36, so like even if you were going to say like, oh yeah, well, maybe I'm looking to extend him for a year, like who knows what kind of production you could anticipate next year.
Maybe he doesn't feel like Racine's ever going to put in the boost capital that that would make it worth keeping him.
But for Turner, though, it's like the rest of the year deal. I mean, I get it. he was absolutely killing the ball in Seattle to the tune of a 132 OPS plus so far this season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're hoping that he keeps putting out that offensive output. So far, though, he's over 13. So not yet, but we'll see. Yeah, a couple of interesting moves by Houston. So where are they at in the standings now? Let's see where. Oh, sorry. Standings check. They are. That's the wild card. They are 9 games back of Texas. Texas is kind of running away with the West. Not as close as prior seasons, but Houston does sit in the number 2 spot for the wild card, a half game back of Cleveland, who both of those two teams have lost 8 out of their last 10. Both of them are sliding heavily back towards the Angels and the Orioles and the Yankees and the Mariners. So, yes, that's right. He's got his Orioles shirt on. So, so yeah, a couple of interesting moves by Houston. I'm kind of the opposite of JR. I think the Glaus for Bonilla deal makes less sense than the Turner deal, but both of them are kind of like, what's Ben doing in Houston kind of thing.
Like I
I've
said,
learned not to question Ben.
creating a challenge. You know,
Well,
he was bored.
Let's mix things up. All right, so next deal. Where's the trade log? There it is. All right, so 3 straight moves by Pittsburgh to add 3 different pitchers as they are doing whatever they can to repeat for a 3rd straight season as World Series champions. The first one was with Montreal, where they sent Davy Jones to the Pirates.
No, Dave Jones went to the Pirates.
Right. They sent them to the Pirates. That's what I said.
Even I caught that one.
I misunderstood, and that's not good.
And Montreal
it's a Pirates
got
of the
back,
Caribbean reference. It's okay.
Montreal got back Alfredo Noches, a first base prospect, and reliever Chris Simon.
Did Davey bring his locker? That's the question.
I don't know.
Chris Simon, the guy who I traded away.
Thoughts?
If Noches has a good game, do we say he's Buenos Noches?
Buenos noches.
I mean, it's kind of interesting that Jones has been used as a closer, and you look at his profile, and I mean, he looks like he could be a pretty decent starter. And I know it looks like Cody put him into the rotation. So
yeah, the first game didn't go so well though. 1 start, gave up 4 earned over 5 innings. And
yeah. I mean, he still has to
no
develop,
decision.
but
No decision.
I'm not a huge fan of his pitching profile. Like, yes, he's got the good forkball and fastball, but I don't know. Just I'm worried about how he's going to transition both here in the rest of 24, but also into 25. I don't like his profile personally.
I think with Pittsburgh, they have an issue with their 5th spot in the rotation, and they're trying to see if anything can stick. I think Dave Jones is one of those things that you're trying to get to see, hey, he's got some promise. Let's see if he can put it together with Pittsburgh. But I think that's what they're trying to do here is just find options that could work as a 5th starter with their as little resources as they had to trade in terms of their farm system, because they've offloaded a lot of farm system talent recently. So it makes sense for me.
Maybe I should save this question until after the next 2 deals we read out. But do the deals that Cody made actually help him in the long run here to continue success in potentially win a 3rd title?
Define long run.
Like, does it help him out to win a 3rd title this year?
So short term.
If one of
Sorry,
these
I meant
three,
to say
if
short
one of these 3 hit, yes.
Yeah, and that's why he made 3 deals here instead of just 1. He's got well, I mean, DaCosta, I don't know if is he a starter profile?
He's a reliever.
He's more of a reliever. He's got stamina, but he's a 2-pitch pitcher essentially.
Yeah.
And then Fuller from Seattle. He's a borderline starter. He actually also made a start, but he did a lot better. He threw 6 shutout innings. against the Padres, which is no small feat.
Yeah, 8K is
Well,
too,
and
so.
it's this, but his thing is he's got a better profile in terms of around control and movement than the other two, but he still only has 2 out pitches.
Right.
So
which is why
there's a risk there.
it's these kind of players that are trying to slot into the back of the rotation instead of someone that's going to be the front of the rotation. And I think that's what I mean. It looks like Cody plugged both of them into the rotation. Yeah. So yeah, Fuller and Jones are the 4-5 in the rotation. He tried Frazier Pena for 11 starts. Flores has 1 start. So yeah, he's just trying to see what sticks in the back end of his rotation. He's got a solid top 3 in Wayne, Sharp, and Koshin.
And to kind of tie in this current trio of trades with the next trio of trades that we're about to discuss, Fuller being the pitcher he added, the lefty he added, was not what Cody wanted to do. It was not an almost happened situation. But Cody tried really, really, really hard to get Barreto.
To get who?
Barreto.
Okay.
Guy he had previously traded me, who is among the better relievers in the league in my bullpen, but he can be a starter. And he ended up messaging me like an hour to go, like with like one final like last ditch offer. He'd been messaging me consistently over the 2 days leading up to the deadline, trying to get him. Because I don't think he was happy leaving Fuller as his 5th guy.
Yeah. Well, enough about the 3 pieces that the Pirates got back. What about who the Mariners got back for Fuller and who JR got back for DaCosta in Juan Sobarzo and Vittorio Francione?
An absolute big league name there that JR bringing back in.
Yeah,
that is a big
Vittorio.
League name right there.
Playing the name game.
So I'll go into a little bit of our deal. Just, DaCosta is somebody that if you look at his numbers, from not this year, but the previous couple of years, he was a pretty valuable bullpen arm for me, for a couple of seasons there, was able to pitch a lot of innings with his stamina, pretty high strikeout rates, but he'd really struggled this year and his arbitration number was going to be big. So quite honestly, I was thinking that I was probably going to either try to, trade him at the end in the off season and see what I could get, or just non-tender him. So Cody came to me and really wanted to get him to add another lefty to his bullpen. So, neither one of us had too much in our farm system, but I thought Sabarza, had a decent profile as a starting pitching prospect, with some things to improve on. And then our boy Vito, he's somebody that throws really hard, has big time stuff, but not real great control, but something that potentially can work on in the development lab, maybe something like that in 25. But just kind of a little bit of a wild card reliever prospect, but basically for a guy that I wasn't going to keep next season.
Yeah, and you shed some salary off. It's someone you weren't going to really have future plans for, so you get what you can for him, and I think that's a solid deal for you.
Yeah.
And the Mariners just got back something, a pitcher who had a pulse for a guy they were not going to keep.
Yeah, same kind of situation.
Yeah. I love Francione's personality. Always has snacks in his locker. That's a player I can add. That's a true big leaguer right there.
That's a man after my heart.
Also, that's why he has high financial ambition. He needs money to pay for those snacks.
Exactly.
All right. Brenden, another trade of yours. Actually, no, Brenden and JR.
Let's let JR take the lead on this.
Swung a deal. Oh, I'm going to talk about this right here. You've already changed his position.
Yeah, so for me, this was kind of coming off. I think we were talking about this before we started recording, but my team really went into crapper here, over this toward the end of July. One stretch we lost 9 games in a row, and so I didn't want to give up on the season where I'm going to trade somebody really impactful, but a guy like Riley had a decent year. He had another year under his contract from next season at $8.5 million, I think. And one of those things where, all right, if I can see if there's something I can get for him, I can move him and, maybe give some playing time to Phil Miller, who's played pretty well as an infielder for me. Maybe bring John Captain back up from AAA, see what he can do. But it allowed me to, again, knowing that my farm system is in the place it was, it allowed me to, to pick up a decent arm in Morrissey and a guy in, contestable that, has a pretty good power profile that could fit well in Great American Ballpark.
Excuse me. Brenden, your side.
Contestable has been in a struggle to earn consistent playing time, not due to performance, but just due to a log jam on the roster. He's another lefty hitter. I've got a lot of lefty, guys who only hit righties. He can't really field all that well. I like him as a player, but I kind of, and my scout, Contestable is one of the funniest players I've ever seen, like in terms of scout versus OSA. I don't mind sharing this. My scout considers him 50-50. OSA considers him 57-66. The individual ratings aren't that far off. It's just the overall potential, which is funny. I view this. I had 3 deals kind of come together within the last 12 hours of the deadline, this being the first one. And the goal of 2 of them was to upgrade the lineup to contend with the other, really good lineups in the American League. I feel like our pitching staff is good. We just needed some lineup help. And Riley's that.
So interesting, though, that Riley was a third baseman specifically when you made the deal, and you have already put him in right field.
Yeah, he's listed as a right fielder because he actually plays first base. I can tell you exactly what it is. I just needed to list him somewhere. Against righties, he plays first, and against lefties, he's in right field.
Gotcha.
Does that 1 of 7 defense out there not scare you?
You know what? Against just lefties, so not a huge percentage of my games, not really.
Yeah, the good thing with what I liked about him when I got him from Atlanta in the offseason was just, he could pick up a lot of at-bats at different places. You can always plug him in different spots. If somebody gets hurt, you can always filter him around to get enough at-bats to make it worthwhile.
And that was kind of my thinking with getting him. He's there for his bat.
Yeah. And he can provide good at-bats now, but he's also an insurance policy. It's kind of like you're getting both with him.
Mm-hmm. If God forbid Bluth were to have another injury,
Yeah, if you got to play Riley for 2 months at as a starter at third base, it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to see how Contestable hits in a Great American Ballpark.
Oh, me too.
That'll be interesting to see.
I'm going to be giving him a lot of at bats at DH because that's again, that's kind of where Riley had ended up a lot of times, at either DH or third or first. But so it's worth trying out, to see if I can get some more, power from him.
All right, rolling along the Baltimore trade wagon, acquired Ozzie Albies from the Braves as well as $200K in cash for closer Jorge Ramos and pitcher Sam Adams. Still trying to get that sponsorship for Commish, right?
The good time. Jorge Ramos, but I list all of my stoppers as closers. So Jorge Ramos was one of 3 closers on the team. I felt like this was, with the way we were beating up on the competition we were playing right out of the All-Star break. We didn't have a very tough schedule, but we were getting hot. We were hitting well. We were pitching well. I felt now was the time to make a big push, add another big bat in Riley, and add another one in Albies, and try to make a big push to move up in the playoff standings and make a run for a World Series. And Albies has been a on again, off again, good hitter throughout his career. He's having a one of his best years in recent, or one of his best seasons in recent memory. Hit 23 home runs with Atlanta. I felt like adding another big home run hitter to our lineup would really help with us competing this year. And Ramos got pushed out of his role in the bullpen by Soto, the answer, who gets to go back to the bullpen after adding Weathers.
Yeah, honestly, I thought Atlanta could have gotten a little bit more for Albies, especially since they're retaining 10% of the rest of his contract. Yeah, I know he's a rental, but maybe just one more mid-flyer prospect. It seems like a light return for someone who's hitting pretty darn well this season.
Well, and I mean, Franco notwithstanding, who's a big name, and maybe Corcoran. I mean, it's tough to move. I was surprised with so little interest in Creedler, who, has his whole career in front of him, basically. But
maybe we would toss more prospect wise.
Yeah. So
yeah, at least with Albies, I mean, it's just a pure rental.
Yeah.
The funny consequence of this is Alfredo Espinoza, who in 98 games at second base had a 5.
Had a 5.
He gets to go play center field.
Oh
wow.
2 out of 8 in center field, according to OSA.
2 out of 10.
Apparently, Brenden is playing the who cares about defense from one of our old GM buddies that is no longer in the league.
It's more like, oh man, I've now traded for all these hitters. How do I get them all on the field at the same time?
That's fair.
Next up, Brenden.
All right, and is this the last Baltimore deal? It is.
Yeah.
Baltimore gets back Caleb Smith, Edward Berry, and $1 million for Grant Gambrell.
So, I think we all are very familiar with how Eddie proposes trades. So I don't think he'll have a problem with me reading this out here. This is exactly what he sent to me.
I just want to say this. Eddie has the best trade proposals in eMLB.
Oh, 1,000. Actually, no, he's second for me. Hebrew, if he really wants a player, he did a PowerPoint for me one time.
Oh, that's true. He did do that with the Andrew James free agency as well.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So Eddie says to me, I've got a proposition to keep this stupid tradition alive. The stupid tradition he's alluding to is every single year, Eddie sends me a trade on the day of the deadline. I make one alteration and then we accept it. And this has been going back, I think to the 24 season, although I don't think we made a deal at the deadline. I think it was a little bit earlier than that, but we've made a trade every single season at the deadline. And it's usually it ranges from fairly impactful to basically nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm loving that we have this going. So, got a proposition to keep this stupid tradition alive. Miami trades Smith and Berry. Baltimore trades Gambrell. Smith's a lefty who has great games for me, who's had a couple great games for me these past couple weeks. Berry is a 26-year-old who has done all right in limited time in the bigs. Gambrell is extremely popular. That was the message.
Yep.
That sounds like an Eddie.
And then I asked for some cash, and he said he could do $1 million. That was the deal. It's 4 messages. It took, I don't know, a couple minutes between all of them.
Yeah.
That's one of those things where it's like, if you could not tell us who was involved, you could just read that out. Yeah. And as soon as you say extremely popular, we all know it's out.
Yep.
and I feel like this is a decent deal for both sides. He gets to control Gambrell, and I like Gambrell as a reliever. He's really good. I add another lefty. And really, Gambrell, again, is another guy who's pushed out by us having a good top of the bullpen, so adding another lefty is beneficial to me. So, whatever.
Yeah, it fascinates me.
Caleb Smith started the year in St. Louis, and I waived him after he stunk up the joint as a injury replacement for Shaw. So he was able to turn that around into a deal.
He was.
All right. Any other thoughts on Brendan's trio of deals?
it seems like a very Brenden trio to make at this point of
Yeah.
the year.
Classic
Like-
Brendan. Glad you're back.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
classic. I mean,
Slight moves, but it's definitely
Well,
Making a
we can
point.
all say last season or the season before where you and Minnesota essentially traded teams. That's not classic Brendan.
right.
that deal netted me Alfredo Espinoza.
Yes, it did. And I am very jealous because he is a fantastic player.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and the rest of these deals, we have 4 left. 3 of them include Miami. So Miami made it. Actually, Miami, it looks like, ended up with the most trades at the deadline as a result, beating out my 4, Pittsburgh's 3, Baltimore. You had 4, I think.
I
So-
technically had 3, I think.
Yeah. So Eddie takes the crown.
No, I
for
had
the
4.
big-
I had 4
You had 4?
because of Franco, and then the 2 other deals we're going to talk about, and then the 3-teamer.
Okay. Well, yeah, that is 3. That's 4.
But JR got Bacon out of the deal. I mean, that's
Yes,
JR got bacon.
JR got bacon.
And I only have to pay for 20% of it.
You only have
Hey,
to pay.
just
Yeah.
discounted bacon. Better
We
just
like
check if
discounted
it's-
bacon here.
Make sure it's fully cooked. All right, so you got Troy Bacon, a reliever, and right fielder Kevin Armitage, and then Miami got back Mike Bracchia, Alvaro Figueroa, and Jim Stone. Jim Stone, I feel like, is one of those players that, like, he had that. You hoped he had that high potential, but he just never lived up to it.
Yeah, I really wanted him to work because he was that 1.0 legend guy, and it would have been cool to have him, playing really well on the team, but he just didn't work out. I mean, he has the whole captain trait and the leadership and everything, but just didn't work out. I mean, again, Figueroa and him were guys that I was going to non-tender this offseason, so guys that I wasn't planning on having back. Armitage is a little bit of a poor man's version of Bracchia. So, in order to have kind of 2 months of bacon where I'm only paying him, 20% of his salary, I get kind of like a lower rent outfielder. I mean, for me, it kind of worked out.
I think it was a smart move on your part, especially if you can make a run.
I'm really surprised that Figueroa hadn't done better. When I had him up, he had 2, pretty plus pitches as a reliever, but just never seemed to really put it together.
Well, when you're a fly ball pitcher with low movement at Great American Ballpark,
Yeah, that's a
that,
little rough.
that's
Yeah.
kind of
Miami seems like a good spot for him.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
I
now
will
we
say,
move on-
going back to Stone, though, I could tell you one GM that would absolutely love this gap power. Actually, 2 GMs that would love the gap power. One of them sitting in the call right now.
I like the profile of
You
Jim
do
Stone.
like the profile, Jim Stone. And also Aaron in Minnesota would absolutely
Oh, yeah.
love someone with that kind of gap power.
Aaron. It's really funny that we can actually go into me and Aaron's deal, but it's really funny to me because Aaron and I are both real life Tampa Bay Rays fans, and in OOTP, she and I have had conversations about it. We both like the same exact profile of players. That she got mad at me because I sniped some players she was trying to get in the draft, and I sniped some and she sniped some that I was trying to get. So it's one of these full circle moments.
Yep. Well, in this deal between you two, you sent over Ben Spears and 1.5 in cash and got back closing prospect Jim Joyce, Mike Briggs, who was a player I know because I sent him to Minnesota, and Joe Ryan, a relief or prospect.
who I sent to Minnesota as part of the Espinoza deal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we have a whole bunch of connections here.
So Brennan can attest to this. I've been trying to get Joe Ryan for like 3 seasons.
Yeah,
I needed to keep, because Wander Franco was the last Ray on the team that was still a real life Ray. I'm going to put that in
What?
quotations.
Was.
So I needed to get someone else in and insert Joe Ryan into that, just to keep just to keep myself happy as a Rays fan. The same reason why Andrew held on to Brendan Donovan.
Hey, I sent you Matt Garza the second.
You did, but it's the second. It's not
I
the
know.
original.
It's still got the ties.
It's still got the ties.
And
However,
this
so
deal is huge.
but as a umpire as well, which Andrew can attest to, getting Jim Joyce was just fun.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
literally, Jim Joyce was, hey, I wanted a fun name, and hey, guess what?
Well,
it's a
he's
kind of
gonna-
a decent profile.
Yeah, but he's going to struggle on plays to first.
Yeah, he's gonna struggle, especially if anyone named Galarraga is anywhere near a field. We're gonna have some real issues.
Okay.
I guess that fits a
I'm
personality. He's got low F, doesn't give maximum effort, so he's not getting in a position to make those calls.
Oh Lord. But yeah,
That age
so,
is that aged better than the Franco joke.
Oh. But yeah, so
man.
he was in my opinion, an important player for me to get just because I like his play. Spears' expiring deal next year was going to be $24 million for me to hold on to. Not in the budget. Not in Tampa Bay's budget.
I don't
Not
think
anywhere
anyone's
close
doing
to,
that.
not anywhere close to Tampa Bay's budget. And Mike Briggs, just sort of a poor man, almost a poor man's Jim Mayhall. I mean, he's got a. If you don't mind clicking on his profile real quick for me, Andrew. He's got the pump. He's got the gap power, which I love. Wish the avoid K was higher. Hasn't really put it all together. I'm hoping that maybe he can put it together in Tampa. We're going to give him some time in Durham, see what he does. And he's a potential September call-up to add to the lineup.
Yeah, he killed it his rookie year in St. Louis. 144 OPS plus and a 2.2 WAR. But I included him in the Tony Courtney deal. Because I did not like the fact that he was pretty much only a DH versus righties. But since you moved out Mayhall, he fits into that role perfectly.
We have a few other options that we're going with before Mayhall, which I'm sure we can, if we really want to get into it. I would love to show my team on here for a second so you can see the new look. But we get into that after the next trade that I made with Mayhall sending out. But let's go to the other Miami deal real quick first.
I just want to point out something on Aaron's side is I'm wondering why Aaron of all teams made the deal. Because Ben Spears is really, unless you're willing to commit that $24 million team option, which I can't imagine she would. Ben Spears is a 1 year is a half season rental for a team that is. Are they in the playoff race? I don't think so. They're doing better than we expected.
I disagree. I think she is committing the money for it.
Really?
Let me see here. Hold on.
Really?
I'm just really surprised.
Okay, so here was the message. Here was how the message went. She honestly, it was me talking about she came to me asking about Dom to start. And then it flipped to Spears. She said she did say that she does plan on re-signing him. And she also did say that the reason I sent the $1.5 million is to cover in case she does choose to buy him out. It's a $3 million buyout. I just sent half to cover the buyout.
So the question is, does she accept the team option or does she buy out the team option and try to re-sign at a lower price?
I think
before going to free agency.
I think she goes with the team option personally. But that's just my opinion on it.
So for those wondering, this is the contract setup. Making a little over $8 million this year and has two team options at $24.4 and $25.4 million for the next two seasons. $3 million buyout this year, excuse me, and 2.6 the next year. So it'll be interesting to see what Aaron does with Ben Spears because, like I said, with Minnesota below 500, still in rebuild mode, but definitely improving. It's interesting that you bring in a player like Spears.
But then if she started out talking about Dom, then it's obvious she was planning on spending some money next
I think
year.
Aaron because Aaron does have a few contracts coming off the books that were signed by the previous administration in Minnesota. That I think Aaron's going to be a sneaky team to come out. I know there's some talks about potentially reshaping the divisions the commission's mentioned on stream. So that is not any new information or reshaping the alignment of some form for competitive balance that has been mentioned on stream. But if it stays with the current alignment, I could see Minnesota potentially creeping into a wild card spot for future years.
Possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really surprised that there wasn't a better deal out there for Spears, but
you'd be surprised. There wasn't that big of a market for him.
Yeah, that surprises me.
It surprised me too.
Yeah, shoot, I would have given you a better deal last offseason.
I know.
Yeah. There are a couple of players in Minnesota that
well, we lost Andrew, guys, so we're just gonna, take over here and absolutely, ravage.
No adults in the room.
No adults.
The adult of the podcast pals is not here right now.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, my eyelids look really heavy.
So I can talk about the last deal. Basically, Jim Mayhall and Juan Loaiza, who has not played well, as well as a little bit of cash over to Miami for 2 lotto ticket prospects. Basically, that was strictly a salary dump move. I had to attach Loaiza to it to be able to get the deal done. Mayhall hopefully gets a new home. He does put some butts in seats over there. And you know what? We in Tampa move on and get to play some of our young guys that we get to see now.
And Andrew, just in case the listeners are worried, Andrew did lose internet. He is okay.
He is okay.
No. He's playing that game. He's playing that.
He's playing Raid Shadow Legends, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, that's exactly what.
The internet.
Screw you guys, I got 8 million points.
He got a knock at the door. He had to take off.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that basically recovers the trade deadline. Now, I did allude to something earlier, and we do have to touch on it before we go. I know, Brenden, your eyelids are heavy, but I do have to touch on it before we go because I did allude to it. JR, there was a deal that almost came together that just didn't pan out at the last minute for a certain former Cy Young Award winner.
So I don't think that Billy will mind me talking a little bit about this because he was pretty open about having Pepe Clark and Danny Diaz on his trade block there as we were getting to the deadline. But I did inquire about Danny Diaz as a way to get some right-handed pop in the Reds lineup, which I desperately need somebody to hit between Trey Griffey and Robert Hassel III. That is absolutely going to be my number one target in the offseason. Spoiler alert. But so I did toss out the notion of me trading my CCP starting pitcher Jimmy Potts for Diaz, which the problem there was money. I don't have much money there. Billy doesn't have much money, shockingly enough, as the Boston GM. We worked around a couple of different scenarios that we actually got to a spot where it could have potentially worked out. But then we did even talk about the notion of maybe to make the money work, instead of Potts being in the deal, Jandy Bronson could have been the pitcher going to Boston with Diaz and, maybe some other pieces involved, around the deal to make the money work. But ultimately, I decided, knowing that Diaz had an opt-out coming up in his contract, I think it's after next season, that I wasn't, at least as of right now, crazy about trading one of those two starting pitchers for Diaz, and not knowing, what the future might hold there. So I kind of pulled back a little bit there at the end, but I would love to add Danny Diaz to this lineup, obviously.
Is he going to be a guy you're going to be going after in the offseason?
He said that.
Yeah.
Well, he said he was looking for a right-handed bat. He didn't specifically mention it. I'm asking specifically about Diaz.
Yeah, but the comment I made before was a right-handed bat in the offseason.
So I'm getting a little specific, trying to,
I would be interested in trying to explore Diaz again in the offseason. I've got in my starting rotation, I've got Jandy, Potts, Mackenzie Gore, Jimmy Hernandez, and Clisby right now, and Maldonado's a guy that I think could be a starter. So, in order to kind of fill other needs, I am probably going to look to shop one of those starting pitchers in the offseason in order to make some moves. So that could be something we revisit there in the offseason. Again, I don't, he may find some other deal that works better for him, or he may decide ultimately he wants to keep Diaz, but that definitely could be something that pops up again.
Interesting.
If that had gone through, that would have been truly
Yeah, that would have been a big trade.
Yeah, that
been a
would
mega
have been
deal.
the biggest trade of the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I love I can't imagine how many home runs Danny Diaz would hit in Great American
God,
Ballpark.
him
I
and
mean,
Great American just sounds like music to my ears.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
Like,
exactly what Trey needs hitting behind him for sure.
Is Trey Griffey going to be a Red next season?
I don't know. I
Tune
really
in
don't.
Time to find out.
Well, stay tuned to the broadcast buddies and podcast pals to find out. This is the hard-hitting analysis you guys are here for. We really appreciate all you guys listening. For Andrew, who is no longer with us, RIP. For Raid Shadow Legends, for Tim Lowery, for JR, and Brendan and myself. Aiden, we appreciate you guys listening in. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and join the Discord where you can find all this information, including some trade recaps that were written up by some specific GMs as well. And also make sure to give us a like and take a look at us on Twitch as well. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back at some point, who knows when. But until then, we'll see y'all later. Peace.
Peace.
Can any of us hit the stop recording button?
Titties, yeah.
Yeah.